Teddy sat across from Ilene at a small cafe near her office. The air between them hummed with an unspoken tension, a mixture of hope and hesitation. They had been talking for an hour, but neither of them had touched the subject that hung heavily over their heads. Finally, Teddy broke the silence. "I have to tell you something," he said, his voice low. He leaned forward, clasping his hands together on the table. "That day I showed up at your office, there wasn't a work order." Ilene blinked, momentarily thrown off. "There wasn't?" Teddy shook his head, looking slightly embarrassed. "No, I wanted an excuse to see you. I couldn't stop thinking about you, and I didn't know how else to approach you." She felt her heart swell at the confession, warmth spreading through her chest. There had been something undeniably sincere in his arrival that day, and now, knowing the truth, it felt like more than just a simple visit. "But," Teddy continued, "there's more. I went on 2 dates with that other woman I mentioned. She's nice, but—" He trailed off, shaking his head again. "She was loud, overwhelming. I realized what I missed was the quiet moments I had with you. Our talks, the way we could just sit together and not fill every moment with noise." Ilene's breath caught. She hadn't known what to expect from this conversation, but the vulnerability in Teddy's words touched her deeply. "I don't know if there's anything here, Ilene," he said quietly, meeting her gaze, "but I hope you'll give me the chance to find out." Ilene's chest tightened, emotions swirling inside her. She wanted to give him that chance. She wanted to see where this could go, but part of her was still raw, still unsure. "Of course," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "We can try." For a few blissful weeks, things seemed to be looking up. Ilene and Teddy fell into a rhythm, spending quiet evenings together, talking about everything and nothing. They didn't label it, didn't rush anything, but there was an undeniable connection forming between them. They had never even kissed, preferring to take it slow, to get to know one another, and to learn about each other before they took it deeper. They had held hands, and their friendship was starting to feel like more. That was, until Richard found out. One evening, as Ilene sat at her kitchen table scrolling through her emails, her phone buzzed with a text from Teddy. "Hey, can we talk? Something's come up." Her stomach twisted. There was an ominous tone in his words, and she quickly typed out a reply, asking if everything was okay. When they met at the park the next day, Teddy looked different, tense, uncertain. He sat beside her on the bench, his hands shoved into his pockets, staring out at the children playing in the distance. "Richard reached out to me," he said finally. Ilene's heart plummeted. "What?" she asked, her voice thick with disbelief. Teddy nodded, his jaw clenched. "He called me, said he wanted to warn me. He told me things about you, Ilene. About how controlling you can be, how demanding you are. He painted this picture of someone who always gets her way, no matter the cost." Ilene stared at him, stunned. Anger and hurt twisted inside her. But mostly, there was a deep sense of betrayal. Richard hadn't just blown up their marriage. Now he was trying to sabotage her future, too. "I can't believe he did that," she whispered. "Teddy, you know that's not who I am." "I do," he said quickly, turning toward her. "I don't believe him. But—" Ilene's breath caught. There it was. The hesitation. "But my last relationship was with someone who used me, Ilene. She took advantage of me, and I didn't see it until it was too late. I swore I'd never put myself in that position again. And now, with Richard planting these seeds in my head—" Teddy trailed off, rubbing his temples in frustration. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough to take that chance again." Ilene swallowed hard, her heart breaking a little more with every word. She wanted to fight for this, but she couldn't change the past or the damage Richard had done. All she could do was let Teddy make his own choice, even if it hurt. "I understand," she said softly, her voice trembling. Teddy looked at her, pain flickering in his eyes. "Ilene, it's okay," she said, forcing a sad smile. "I get it. You have to do what feels right for you." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, with a reluctant sigh, Teddy stood up from the bench. Ilene stayed seated, staring at the ground, her heart heavy. "Goodbye, Teddy," she whispered. He nodded, his expression conflicted, and started to walk away. She watched him, knowing that this was the end. Or at least, it should have been. But then, just as he reached the edge of the park, Teddy stopped. "This feels wrong," she thought she heard him mutter. Ilene's breath caught as she watched him turn around, hesitating for a moment before walking back toward her with determined strides. Without saying a word, he stopped in front of her, reached out, and gently cupped the side of her face in his hand. Ilene's eyes widened in surprise. her heart racing as Teddy leaned in and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was soft, tender, and filled with a kind of longing that took her breath away. When he finally pulled back, his thumb brushing lightly against her cheek, his eyes searched hers. "I knew it would be like that," he whispered. Ilene blinked, still dazed. "Like what?" Teddy smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him in days. "Like the earth moved under my feet." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, a small smile tugged at Ilene's lips, and for the first time in what felt like forever, hope bloomed in her chest again. Teddy had refused to let Richard ruin the feelings that were building between them, and so would she.